It was a quiet evening when Jenna arrived at the old house. She had inherited it from an aunt she barely knew, a woman who had lived alone in the sprawling, decaying mansion for decades. The house stood on the outskirts of a small, forgotten town, surrounded by dense woods and an air of abandonment. As Jenna stepped out of her car, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it a faint, eerie whisper. The house loomed before her, its once white walls faded to gray, and the windows, dark and hollow, seemed to watch her approach. Jenna shrugged off the uneasy feeling that settled over her and unlocked the door. Inside, the air was thick with dust and neglect, but there was something else, something Jenna couldn't quite place. It felt as though the house had been waiting. As night fell, Jenna explored the house, room by room, each one more decrepit than the last. She found herself drawn to a small room at the end of the upstairs hallway. Inside, a large, ornate mirror dominated one wall. Its frame was intricately carved, with strange, almost grotesque faces etched into the wood, their hollow eyes staring back at her. The glass was cloudy, but as Jenna stepped closer, she felt a chill run down her spine. Her reflection in the mirror seemed off. The lighting was dim, but there was a subtle delay in her movements. When she lifted her hand, her reflection was just a fraction of a second behind. Jenna blinked and rubbed her eyes. "It's just my imagination," she muttered, turning away. But as she walked out, she could have sworn her reflection smiled after she had turned her back. That night, Jenna lay in bed, tossing and turning. The house creaked and groaned, but there was something more disturbing. A faint whispering, like the wind through the trees, but more insistent. She sat up, straining to hear, but the whispers stopped. Her eyes drifted toward the open door of her bedroom, where she could just make out the hallway leading to the room with the mirror. Suddenly, there was a sound, a soft, steady tapping. It was coming from that room. Jenna's heart raced as she slowly climbed out of bed. The tapping grew louder, more insistent, as if something was trying to get her attention. With shaking hands, she grabbed her phone and walked down the hallway. When she reached the room, the tapping stopped. The mirror stood there, silent and still. But as Jenna approached, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Behind her reflection in the mirror, there was a shadow, a dark, human-shaped figure standing just behind her. But when she spun around, there was no one there. Over the next few days, the strange occurrences escalated. Objects in the house would move on their own, doors would open and close, lights flickered even though the power was fine, and the whispers never left Jenna's ears. Every time she passed the mirror, she felt an overwhelming sense of dread, but she couldn't look away. One evening, while Jenna was washing her face in the bathroom, she glanced at the small mirror above the sink. Her reflection stared back, but something was wrong. The eyes, her own eyes, were wide with terror, but her face was expressionless. Slowly, the reflection began to change. Its lips twisted into a cruel, unnatural smile, and it mouthed words Jenna couldn't hear. She stumbled backward, knocking over a bottle of soap, but the reflection remained still, watching her. When she ran out of the bathroom and down the hall, the mirror at the end of the hallway began to glow faintly. Jenna froze, unable to look away, as a hand reached out from the glass. Terrified, Jenna knew she had to leave. But as she grabbed her keys and raced toward the front door, it slammed shut before she could reach it. The whispers grew louder, now a cacophony of voices, all pleading, screaming, calling her name. She felt something brush past her, cold and invisible, and the house seemed to tighten around her, like it was alive and didn't want her to escape. In desperation, Jenna ran back to the room with the mirror. She didn't know why, but she felt drawn to it, as though it held the key to everything. When she entered, the reflection in the mirror was no longer hers. The shadowy figure was there, fully formed, standing in her place. Its eyes glowed a deep, malevolent red. Jenna screamed, but no sound came out. The figure stepped toward her, pressing its hand against the glass, and then it stepped out. Cold fingers wrapped around her wrist, pulling her toward the mirror. Jenna fought, but her body felt weak, like it was being drained of life. The last thing she saw before the darkness took her was her own reflection, now trapped behind the glass, pounding desperately to be set free. In the morning, the house was silent. The mirror stood, its surface smooth and clear, reflecting an empty room. Like, follow, and share for more.